We'll go ahead and get started. I think James will join us in just a second here. I want to welcome everybody to the December meeting. This is the first meeting we have had since, I believe, October. We did not have a meeting in November. And of course, since then, I will take this opportunity. Stacy, the Hearts for Heroes was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I really enjoyed seeing a lot of the veterans there. Terry, your dad, I mean, honor him and the others. It was just a fantastic event all the way around. And I hope as many of you made it as you can. It was really a good event. It was a moving event for me. I just felt like we have so many veterans. We have several in here that I just want to thank you and also thank you for your sacrifices and your families, because what y'all did allows me to be here and the freedoms that I enjoy and my family enjoy. And I want to thank all of you for that.
Yeah, well, just send me his number.
With that now, y'all bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you, Lord, for the season that we're upon. One of our most holiest seasons that we want to thank you for, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for those people that are here today. Thank you for the time that this board members give to this effort. Thank you for the people that work at this airport and make it what it is for this community. I ask these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Okay, now get into the approval of the minutes. So first I will say, David could not be here today. He called me and said that he wanted a day off.
With pay.
With pay, I tell you, yeah. He did not offer to give me the pay that he gets for that. But anyway, he is down in Florida. I think one of his sons is having a graduation ceremony. It happened to be today. So anyway, we'll hope he has a safe travel. So with that, let's go to the approval of the minutes for the October 20. They have been provided to you. Has y'all had a chance to look at them? Are there any comments that need to be changes or anything like that that need to be made? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Okay. The financial statements. Those were provided to you also. Are there any questions on the financial statements that were provided to you? Any comments? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the financial statements. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All those approved, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the financial statements are approved. Okay, Terry, we will turn it over to you now for the director's report.
All right, well, we're bringing calendar year 2021 to a close, and it's just been a fantastic year. Not only Hearts for Heroes, which I agree was just a phenomenal event showcasing not only the Chamber of Commerce, but the airport as well, and a lot of our first responder members of the community were here and able to participate, and it was just a good day. I thought all around a very, very good day for us. If you drove into the parking lot, which all of you did, you might have noticed some dirt missing. We have tracked down the location of that missing dirt, and it's over the edge of this cliff right here. And so I'm happy to report that the pipeline system that has been in the design and the bidding process and the engineering and all of the litigation and everything that has gone with that, beginning all the way back in 2010, so almost a dozen years ago, the pipeline system is done. The pipe is in the ground, it's working properly, the creek is flowing through it, we've got pure water coming out the far end. We had occasion to have to pull one of the junction box covers to go back into a little bit of work, as you often have to do in a pipeline system of that sort. And about midway up, so about 1,000 feet from the end, living in the bottom of the manhole was a crawfish about this long. So if anybody thinks that they're not compatible with wildlife, that and they named the big turtle Harvey. He was about that big around, that was crawling around about the midway point on the outside of the system out there. But just an amazing amount of wildlife, because you can see every track, of course, in that much disturbed dirt. But the deer, the coyote, the snakes, all of the wildlife that is here around the airport does not seem to have been hampered or bothered at all. So again, the pipeline is completely in, so we're now in the process of doing the cover-up. So that will be finished probably in about 30 days. So about mid-January, depending on the weather, I expect to be able to announce that this project is done. We are under budget at the present time, which for construction jobs is very unusual. I feel like we in the county together, Scott Green is here today, he's been very instrumental in following this through every step of the way. The county has provided an inspector, Wesley, who comes out here usually once or twice a week and has been looking over our shoulder as well and seems to be pleased with the way things are going. And I couldn't be happier with the progress we're making and what it means for this airport moving forward. We'll talk more about that when I talk about grants in a few minutes. Financially, we're doing very well. The decision that we made about a year ago now to take over responsibility for the FBO continues to pay dividends for us. I think that was a very wise move for us as an airport of this size. It's not without its challenges, of course. And every time, we had a fatal plane crash in the county not too long ago, about a month and a half ago now, I guess. And that plane did not originate here, had nothing to do with us here. But of course, anytime a plane goes down anywhere in Paulding County, everybody immediately assumes that it came from this airport. And we have to kick into high gear to start doing the things that airports go through when those unfortunate situations happen. But we have absorbed that workload. We're now fully staffed, fully trained. We're happy to have Matthew Davis back. Many of y'all know Matthew. He's been off with the Guard, doing his Guard training. He is now a trained killer, as I like to tease him. So be careful when you're walking around Matthew. But Matthew's a great guy. He's here working today. You'll see him probably down in the FBO down there, very knowledgeable on our systems and our fueling and that sort of thing. So just very pleased with the whole staff. It's just been a great year for us. And I am even more excited about what 2022 has to offer. Again, at y'all's request, I'm going to spend about 15 minutes going over the grant process when we get to that spot in the agenda. And I think it's important as we start calendar year 22, with as much activity as we've got planned coming up, that we fully understand what our plan is, how we got here, where we're going, how we're going to pay for it, and all of those things. So I encourage you to pay attention and ask questions. This is the one time of the year when we'll all be together and talking about this important topic. And it's worth spending a few minutes on. So we'll be diving into that in great detail. Any questions for me before we continue with the rest of the meeting? Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, now let's move on to Christine. Yeah, there you are.
Good morning and Merry Christmas, everyone. So, since our last meeting, which was October, we've had 76 visitors, including Anchorage, Alaska, and Lander, Wyoming. Weirdly, I'm taking them off. I want all 50 states. We did the Choice for Tots campaign. Dave, you can be quite proud of your reservists. We did 2.5 boxes.
Awesome.
So, turned those in yesterday. We sent 13 boxes to deployed troops via Blue Star Mothers. And then, as you know, our gentleman went to ICAST this last week. ICAST is the International Council of Air Shows Convention, and the guys did a great job. They've booked us about 10 air shows for next year. Shaw Air Force Base, Vidalia, Charleston, they're working on Orlando. So Paulding County is gonna be mentioned all over this southeast region all next, 2022 air show season. And the last really cool news, I contracted our aircraft to fly Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for the Little League World Series.
Wow.
ESPN will be flying with us for one of the flybys. And attached to your notes that I had, you'll look at the second page, it's just an example from 2018 of the announcer's information. So instead of saying Rome, Georgia, it will be saying Paulding County, everywhere we go this year. So hundreds of thousands, the Little League World Series has 2 million viewers internationally. So Paulding County's gonna get its name out there a little bit. So, any questions?
Well, if I might add to that, I talked to Pete Friday before last. You see the picture at the top right where they're standing in the booth, Pete's there in front. Michael Hughes gave him 30 or 40 packets about Paulding County that are distributed from this booth.
Yep. Oh, and I was gonna make Terry wear it, but I didn't. As you can see, the thing that Pete had to wear around all week says Paulding County on it.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, that is great. That's just one of the bright spots at this airport. And where it's going is just phenomenal. I told Terry this morning, we were talking about the project out here, and I spent a few years on construction, a little bit of stuff around projects and everything, and I've been around a couple. And the 2 days that I really like groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings. I don't care what they are, but I love those two. And that's the reason I'm so happy about this. But your museum out here is fantastic, and I really like the fact that people are coming from all over
Yes.
to see that. That is great. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to Terry. We're back on the grant process.
Class time. Here's your quiz. And I just printed one for each table so y'all can share. It's a little lengthy, and ink cartridges cost a lot, and it's in color, so I thought y'all could share. But I get it to you electronically. I get you all the hard copies you might want, so not a shortage of information. So the grant process is actually something that we do year-round, and it spans a 5-year planning cycle. And I'm glad Jacob is here. Jacob's kind of quiet. He usually doesn't say a whole lot. But Holt is Holt Engineering, who's our engineer of record here at the airport, which, as you know, is mandated by the FAA that we have a qualified engineer effectively on staff, even though all airports in Georgia contract that out. So it's our consultants who are providing that service. But they have to be authorized and certified by the FAA to serve in that role. And then, as you know, in the spring of the year, we went through our 5-year cycle of reselecting that consulting firm that's going to represent us for the next 5 years. And Holt, of course, is entering their second 5-year term with us. But they do most of the engineering that you're going to see in this grant process, and never charge us a dime for that. They could. Some of the consultants do, as I go around the state and get more involved with other airport directors at the other 100 general aviation airports in Georgia. I hear all kinds of stories on, how much it costs to keep your ALP updated and all of those things that we're about to talk about here. And Holt has never presented us with a bill for any of that. And Jacob, I appreciate that. They get paid, of course, on the construction jobs and grants and the other things that we do, but this part of it is something that they do as a service, and it shows, I think, the service orientation of the Holtz, the two Holtz that formed the company, and all of their staff. So I just want to take a minute to say I really appreciate that. Okay, so the grant process actually begins with a strategic plan. And so our strategic plan is found on our website, pauldingairport.com. Anybody in the community, anybody in the world can go to it and they can see our strategic plan. And we wrote this strategic plan September 2nd of 2020. So the skeptic in the room might say, well, that strategic plan is out of date. Why haven't you updated it? And the reason we haven't updated it is because we're dead on track on this strategic plan. And that's what drives our whole planning process and our grant process. So let's just look at it for a moment, just to see what it says that we're going to be doing. You see the 5-year strategic goals listed there. Item 1, obtain PCAA board approval of the high-level development plan of the area surrounding the main terminal building. That's the terminal area expansion project that you see out the window here. As proposed in the engineering graphic from a public meeting of the PCAA on September 2nd, 2020. Done. Okay, y'all did that. We also got the Board of Commissioners. We weren't required to do that, but I think it shows the unity of these two boards working together now. And since the Board of Commissioners is where the bulk of our funding comes from, it's their airport just like it's our airport. We're co-sponsors in this project, and we do not have taxing authority. The Board of Commissioners do, so the funding side of running the airport has to come through the Board of Commissioners. And so we presented this strategic plan to them, and they approved it at one of their meetings as well. Then the FAA encourages us to get public participation. So in November of 2020, in this room, you may remember we held a public hearing, invited the public. It was advertised in the legal organ of the county, the Dallas New Era. It was advertised on our website. It was publicized in these public meetings. And we had pretty good turnout. I can't remember now how many we had, but I don't know, 20, 30 people, I guess. Does that sound about right? Something on that order. And a mix of the public and the aviators that use the airport. So it was a good mix, good representation. And we produced a report on that public hearing, and we published that to the FAA and GDOT. So they are aware of our public involvement, which is, again, a part of the long planning process. So, item number 2, complete construction of the roadway drainage structure east of the terminal building per LPA design documents dated July 2010. Done. Okay? That's the pipeline that we just talked about. We're still moving dirt to bury it a little bit deeper, and we'll put another, probably another 20,000 cubic yards of dirt, roughly, on top of that, and then it'll get grassed and, you know, all of the cleanup and the finish up. And it'll be done probably in about 30 days. You know, probably by our January meeting, we'll be talking about our ribbon cutting for that project, assuming the weather continues to cooperate like it has. So number 2, done. 3, complete design phase 1, or complete the phase 1 design of the terminal area plan to include, and it lists 6 items there. Done. That was the grant that we received earlier in this calendar year, and Holt is actively working on all of those designs now. If you look very carefully, all over the airfield, you see little flags. Stacy, you remember from Hearts for Heroes, we have flags sticking up all over the place. There's marks painted on the concrete everywhere. There are survey ribbons all over the place. There have been sewer line tests and all manner of things that go with a complicated design like this. And we are well underway with the completion of number 3, but the funding of it is done. The grant was accepted. This was a very unusual grant in that it was near 100% funded. I think we had $1.98 or something, very, very small amount. It was a round-off error that we had to fund. Everything else was paid for by the FAA. So great grant, and we're making great progress towards that. Complete the construction of Airport Parkway extension from where Airport Parkway currently ends back here. That's where we pick up in this 5-year plan. So from number 4 through number 10 are the items that are yet to be completed. But the City of Dallas sewer line, which is number 5, we've got a good line on how we're going to do that. Construct 4 new T-hangars west of the terminal. We're going to talk about that in more detail in a minute. That's going to be located over in this area, and I expect construction to begin on that next year if we continue to hit all of our marks with our funding and design as we move forward there. Complete construction of Module 1 taxiway. That's the first taxiway over here that will be required in order for the museum to build their hangar. So that's going to be very important for us to get started working on the design of that next year, so that by the time the museum hangar opens, which is going to go in the area that's being cleared off right here, they got a taxiway so that they can get to their new hangar. So all of that's going to have to be orchestrated and move forward. And then it goes on and on. But the 5-year plan is still very, very accurate, very relevant. And I would encourage us just to continue to follow our plan for at least another couple of years. And then we might revisit that at some point in the near future. Okay, having our 5-year plan that's been vetted and approved, our strategic plan rather, that has been vetted and approved by both boards, by the public, by the FAA, and GDOT, we then move into what's called the CIP. That's the Capital Improvement Plan, or some people call it the Capital Improvement Program. And the format that that takes is this document that you have in your package. And if you flip that over, it's a double-sided document. Look on the very back of that, and that graphic, again provided by Holt, has a bunch of little circles on it. See the circles on the map? Those circles correlate with the, how many items have we got on this? If you go to the very last page of the Excel spreadsheet, we have 23 projects identified. So you'll see all of those circles and how they relate to what's in this Excel spreadsheet. Now this is an odd format. It takes a little bit of time to figure out what you're looking at here. This is FAA mandated, so we don't get to pick how this is presented to the government. Every airport in America does it the exact same way, so we just have to learn how to interpret what's in front of you here. But this is the communication between our board, the Paulding County Airport Authority, the Paulding County Board of Commissioners, and the FAA on what we have presented to them as our 5-year plan. And this 5-year plan is updated every year, so it's a rolling 5-year plan. So each year you take off the projects you've completed and you add another year on to the end. You make adjustments as necessary. And successful airports tend to be very aggressive on these. That's how you get money and funding. We are very aggressive. Again, if you go to the very back page, you're going to see an eye-watering dollar amount, $35 million. If the FAA gives us their part of $35 billion, we'll figure out how to spend it, and we'll be good stewards of that money. But we don't really anticipate that we're going to get everything we ask for. But we have to ask for what we need in order to be racked and stacked, again, with the other airports in America, as we fight for the limited funding that is available to move the aviation community forward. So the projects at the front, on the front page of this, you see E1 and E2. The projects at the start are much more real than the projects when you get to years 4 and 5. But this is your roadmap that tells you what we're planning to do in detail. And what Holt has to do every year when they submit this is they have to submit an FAA approved pre-application form, which is the grant, start of the grant application process to try to get the items that are listed in the next fiscal year funded. So we've already done that for this year. Our pre-applications have been submitted. Everything's been accepted by GDOT, who, because we're a block grant state, does all of the approval and management of the grant process on behalf of the FAA. In other words, the FAA writes a big check to GDOT every year, and GDOT manages the General Aviation Airport in Georgia to divvy up that money under FAA scrutiny and supervision, but they're doing the day-to-day management. So my interface in this grant process is our program manager at GDOT, a lady named Tracy Klein. Many of y'all have met Tracy. And she has most of the Atlanta area airports, Fulton County, PDK, McCollum, our peer group airports. And she works with us to make sure that we keep all of this process moving forward. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about, it's going to seem a little bit off topic, but the next thing in your package is this letter about the release of the school property.
Let me just pull one thing out before you leave the page with all of these numbers on it. This whole program is a $35.4 million program for 5 years.
If it were fully funded, yes.
If it was fully funded. And local funds, that's from our partners with the county, see, our tax dollars going in is 4.8. Now, we're putting 4.8 million into a $35 million program.
That's right.
If our partners had not stepped up for that, the feds would not give us their 22.
Exactly right.
And so that's, to me, that's important that the locals, I mean, this is our tax dollars that are working and going toward this. And we're putting 1/7 into these programs.
Yep.
And to me, that's important. To me, it's important because somebody has stepped up to the plate. The expenditure that our county and our cities and spending our tax dollars going toward this program is great. I mean, without that, we wouldn't be here for doing all of this stuff you're talking about.
That's right, and the economic development that drives in the community in turn is what makes it a reasonable investment for the county to do. Remember, we're getting the big tax money from the G650 that's parked in Hangar 1 over here. That's $500,000 a year, second year in a row that bill has been paid. So if we fill this area up over here, this airport is going to be generating just a tremendous amount of ad valorem tax, jobs, economic activity. We've got the school going up. They're going to be breaking ground in the spring. They'll be announcing in January who their director of the school is going to be. I know who it's going to be. They allowed me to participate in the selection process. They've got an outstanding person who's going to be leading that. I don't think they're quite ready to make that announcement yet, but they've made the offer. He's accepted, and they'll be inking that employment contract probably over Christmas holidays, and you'll see an announcement in early January of who the director of that program is going to be. And just what a great partnership that has turned out, where they've let me participate all along. I don't get a vote in the design process, but they sure do give us a lot of input. And they've worked with us very closely, and they're working with the county closely. It's just an exciting thing, but the economic development that's bringing to Paulding County and the educational opportunities for our young people in this county represents what this county means, or what this airport means to this county. So it is a great partnership.
Well, it's a trickle-down effect. The feds are going to help folks that help themselves.
Right.
The state is going to help folks that help themselves.
Absolutely.
And all three of those partners there, us, the state, the feds, all of that's coming together.
Right. That's right. Okay, so again, the reason I put this in the package, I want to turn your attention to page 3. And you see items 9, 10, and 11 on this list. This is the release letter for the sale of the 2.9 acres to Chattahoochee Tech, actually to the state of Georgia, on behalf of Chattahoochee Tech to build the A&P school. And there was a whole process, a year-long process that we went through. Dave had to make a trip to Washington to finally get it pushed across the finish line, but we got there. The land was released. The state paid for the property. Actually, the Board of Commissioners paid for the property as an economic development activity for the county. And that money is now sitting in an interest-bearing account with strings attached. These are the strings that are attached. And specifically, 9, 10, and 11, number 9 says, expend within 5 years. So this letter is now 2 years old. We've got 3 years remaining to spend this $105,000, okay? The sum of $105,000 plus any accumulated interest, I think we're up to about $1.75 in interest. You know, interest rates are really high right now. For purposes pre-approved by the FAA. That's what gets into this next document that I'm going to share with you and the CIP. So it has to be pre-approved by the FAA, and it's understood and agreed that this amount will not be eligible as sponsor matching funds for federally assisted airport development. Now what that means is we cannot use this $105,000 as our 5% or 10% match on another program. The intent of the FAA is they want to see new development from the expenditure of this money. Because remember, they paid for the land. The FAA paid 90%, 90 cents on the dollar for every acre that the airport sits on, including that property. So that gave them skin in the game to tell us how we are allowed to spend the money, okay? Number 10, maintain accurate records of the above listed expenditures. You can read that for a period of 3 years. What that means is I must track the expenditure of this money as though it were grant money. These are the rules by which we spend grant money. So effectively, that $105,000 has become a grant, okay? Even though it wasn't a grant per se, the rules upon which we have to track and account for that money are the same rules as apply for grants. And then number 11, and this is key, update the airport layout plan upon acceptance of the release and revise the Exhibit A property map to reflect the new airport boundaries. That's this package, okay? So now turn your attention to this package. So you hear me all the time talking about the ALP, the airport layout plan, as though it were one thing. The airport layout plan is actually a package of engineering and civil engineering and aeronautical engineering data, and that's what you've got in front of you here. And the first page that is stapled to the front is the GDOT letter, and you'll see the date on it is very recent, December 7th of 2021. This is our most recent approval for the ALP that both GDOT and the FAA are tracking against. So this is our current, this is a living document, and this is our most current rendition of this ALP. And again, Holt has done all of the engineering and the updates on this as part of their services that they provide to the airport. So again, appreciative of that. And what you'll see when you read this letter is that it has been approved, okay? They always say tentative to final approval from the FAA, but that's pretty much a rubber stamp on these kind of things. And GDOT has to do that because ultimately it's the FAA who holds the approval. But once GDOT's approved it, we can march to this design as though the FAA had already approved it. That's part of the whole block grant program. Okay, so turn to the first page and you see that it says April 2008. All right? The reason it says April of 2008 on the title page is we are still working essentially to the airport layout plan that was in place when the airport opened in 2008. The changes that have been made are considered pen and ink changes to the original airport layout plan, to the rest of the document in here. And there's a recorded history of all of the changes that are made, configuration management of this document, if you will, so that we know what has changed from 2008, but we have not had to go regenerate the airport layout plan since the airport opened. So that's a good thing. The next page, when I say airport layout plan, this is usually what I'm referring to. So in order for these items that you saw in our 5-year plan to be considered approved, they have to be reflected on the AOP. They go hand in hand with this document. So when we fill out a pre-application for a grant that's been approved on the CIP, we are basically saying that this has been fully disclosed in the engineering data that the FAA has approved. And the reason they do that, this is just like a master community development plan. They don't want to see us with hangars popping up all over the place and then you block where a taxiway needed to go. There has to be a master plan on what your airport is going to look like in 5 years, in 20 years. So if you look down on here, you see existing down in the bottom left-hand column. And then you've got a red column that says interim, see that? And then you see a final column that says ultimate. So the ultimate is as far as the eye can see. So typically a 20-year planning cycle, this is what this airport is moving toward, okay? And so the reason you have the ultimate is what I just said. You don't want to put a hangar in the middle of where ultimately you're going to have a taxiway or a runway expansion or a control tower or whatever it may be. And that's why the FAA requires so much attention to detail in these. So when we get to the work authorization that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes here, that I'm asking you to approve today for our T-hangar project that's going on just west of us over here, it had to be disclosed on the AOP. It had to be contained in our 5-year plan. It had to be approved by our board as part of our strategic planning processes. It had to be vetted to the public, which everything was through that public hearing that we held, and it has to be approved by GDOT and the FAA. That's what the approval means. And that is the start of the actual funding process for receiving a grant. So this is your AOP of the AOP, if you will. Now, you'll see the next 2 pages have an X through the bottom of them, and it says not applicable. These were early renditions of what the terminal area expansion area was thought to look like before the airport ever opened, okay? And that has now been replaced by the graphic that you find on our website, which reflects where we're headed today, okay? But these 2 drawings still get carried along as obsolete parts of the AOP. Then beginning on page 4, the really exciting stuff. You know, there definitely will be a quiz on all of this data. This has to do with your Part 77 surface, your approaches, your, you know, when you hear me talking about our tree management process here, and I talk about the fact that we have about 100 acres that we have to keep stripped clean. I was accused one time of saying that we had to strip cut 100 acres of land here at the airport. Yeah, we do, and we do it about every Friday afternoon in the summertime with a John Deere zero-turn mower. It is what you see out the window as our airfield, and we are responsible per these engineering drawings of making sure that no vegetation, no tree, no building, no unlit tower, nothing encroaches upon the safe navigation area used by the aviators who use this airport. That is a very regulated and scientific process. And we get inspected on that from GDOT. We are held accountable for it in how we maintain the airport. And it's kind of the fundamental beginning spot, if you will, for the safe and efficient operation of an airport, which is the underpinning guiding principle of being allowed to operate an airport in the public airspace system of the United States of America. And this is the engineering data upon which that is built. Page 7 is the airport land use plan. And this is, again, a very high-level document that kind of walks you through the areas of the airfield that we expect to be used for various activities. And this is very high level, not a whole lot of useful information on this, but it is a part of the planning process. So you've got that in your package. And then the last document is very important, and this is a civil engineering drawing prepared by surveyors that shows, with survey accuracy, the boundary of all of the property owned by the airport and the various, the location of the various activities that take place in and around the airfield. So this whole package represents, taken together, represents what we call the AOP, even though that one page of it is usually what we're pertaining or what we're referring to. And so, in a nutshell, that's how the process works. So, at an appropriate time of the year, and that time varies depending on where we are with COVID and everything else that drives the world that we live in, we will receive what's called a tentative allocation letter that will say that GDOT, on behalf of the FAA, intends to fund the following projects in the following amounts. And then we have a public vote in here and a public vote in the Board of Commissioners to accept that tentative allocation. Okay, y'all do that all the time. You may not remember it, but you do it on an annual basis. Then we will get the actual grants funded, and we have to go through another vote to agree to accept the actual money and the co-share, our piece of that goes with it. And usually that's specifically approved by the Board of Commissioners because they're the ones writing the check for the 5%, 10%, or 25%, depending on the type of grant it is, that is our matching, local matching funds for the activity. Then the grant goes through this just incredibly complicated DocuSign process that those of us that have to sign it dread every year. If they would just let me drive down to the building down there next to Georgia Tech and pick up the darn thing and run it out to David Small and get him to sign it, that Carmichael to sign it, Yolanda to notarize it, we'd be done in about an hour. It takes about a week, doesn't it, Dave, to get it through the electronic efficient process. So we do that because we like the money when it comes. And when that is finally approved and signed by Commissioner McMurray of GDOT, the Commissioner of GDOT, then we're turned on to spend the money. And then that triggers this whole complicated accounting process that we have to go through so that we can prove to the citizens of the United States of America that we are good stewards of federal tax money. And every recipient of grant funding in America has to go through that same process. So when you hear us talking about things like single audits and our audit process, and by the way, this year we had 0 findings in our airport audit, so we ran $1 million budget when you include the grants through here, and boy, it was detailed. They went through every single receipt on the credit card, for example. And we use the credit card here heavily in buying fuel and buying the supplies we need for running the airport and what have you. And we had, what was that auto parts receipt? It was $16 and some few cents, less than that. And somehow we had missed that in our year's processing. And we had to go back to, I think it was AutoZone, and go through their records and get a copy of that one receipt in order to give us 100% coverage. Because I'm not kidding, the auditors went to that level of detail. It took months. Hats off to Tabitha, who is the finance director of Paulding County. She manages that every year. does an outstanding job. I'd say that if she was here. Does just a phenomenal job of making sure that we are keeping the records we have to keep. She works with us every year when we close out the books. She works with us every year when we start up our new accounts for the new year. We could not do it without it. But without successful auditing, we would lose our certification to receive grants. So that's why that piece is important. And then once you've completed the project, you are required to keep the records, the financial records, for I believe it's 3 years, so that if the government decides they want to come back and do a detailed audit of that particular grant, you've got all of the data to back up where every penny went, to prove that you matched the funds as you were supposed to, and what have you. So at the highest level, that is the grant process. There's 1,000 little details underneath that that are handled by our engineering consultants, by Yolanda and I, by the accountants and so forth, that you don't have to worry about because it's all being taken care of for you. But it is a very, very detailed process because we are being receivers of federal tax money, and therefore we have to be held accountable to that level of standard for the spending of U.S. tax dollars. So that's kind of the high-level description. Anybody have any questions about what we go through every year as we receive grants?
Any questions?
I had a comment. Commissioner Stover and I brought together state delegates earlier this week about a couple of important issues, and I think they would, you might tailor a little bit more for them, but I think they'd like to know. I know some of them come out here and talk to you personally, but if you don't feel like they're up to speed on grants and how it works with the FAA, I think they would appreciate that time.
Sure.
And I can pull it together.
All right, I'd be happy to. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Terry. That was very in-depth, and I appreciate it. It is not an easy process. It's
Yeah,
not,
you've been on the other end of it, so.
yeah, it is not easy. Okay. All right, we will move on in the agenda to entertain a motion to approve the lease of Comanche Room to Epoch Financial Group, Inc.
Epic.
You want to talk about that?
Epic Financial
Epic?
Group. I believe that's how they pronounce it. So, this is a general financial firm. They do far more than avionics or aviation activities, but they do financing in the aviation space, and that's why they desire to be at an airport. They have been at McCollum in one of the big hangars there ever since that building opened several years ago. And the FBO, who leases that building from the county, is squeezing them out because their FBO services are expanding. And if you look out on the ramp, you see a year ago we had 3 airplanes. I counted this morning, we had 10 in this section and another 9 out in front of Johnny's hangar. The majority of these small airplanes are coming to us from McCollum because McCollum is growing, but they're growing in the corporate aviation space. And that is squeezing out people like Johnny Jenkins. That's where we got Johnny Jenkins from. And so this company has been operating successfully at McCollum, but their lease came up for renewal, and Signature, who has the top lease on the building, is not going to sublet that space to them any longer. So they're looking for an airport to go to, and they approached us. I have forwarded you a copy of the lease already. Y'all had an opportunity to see that and comment on it. And I think that this is a very good sister organization to the Toccoa group that Matthew Zelli runs. Matt can go bring in companies, and this outfit can help finance them. And I think looking down the road, this might be a very powerful matching for us, and just has the potential at least to be very good for the airport. At the very least, they're a good tenant, good references, and I think we would be excited to have them here. We're gonna put them in that conference room right across the way. You may remember, we used to lease that space to BB1, and when we finished the renovation of the hangar, they moved all of their office operations that they needed over into the big hangar, didn't need this space anymore, and we've been using it just for a general conference room and rental space since then. But this is a far better use, in my opinion, of the space. It is a one-year lease. You've got all the terms there in front of you. I'll be happy to answer any questions about it.
Just one error I would like to know, it's not the Comanche room, it's the Piper room. We're in the Comanche room.
It's that room right over there.
Let's refer to it as
Right.
Okay. All right, do we have any comments on that? Questions, comments? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the lease.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the lease is approved. Okay, Terry, your comments on the grant process was very lengthy, and what I want to do right now is take about a 10-minute break.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we ready to get back together here? Yes.
She calls you sir? No, she called me boss.
Harold, you're
Yes,
turning
boss.
red there. I don't know what you're even talking about, but you're turning red.
Well, I thought it was my wife over here. She said, sir, and I just.
I've been mistaken for quite a few people's wives this week.
Okay.
Is that good or bad?
I need to get, bring something up. We need to have an amendment to our agenda and add an item. It was an oversight. We did not have a November meeting, but anyway, we had an oversight, and we need to approve our CIP. So I need to first get a motion, need to make a motion or get a motion to approve the agenda, to add an item in here to approve our CIP. So I need a motion for that.
So moved.
All right, and a second. Okay, any, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, so we have approved the agenda. Now, I need a motion. We need to approve the CIP. Do we need any comments on that, or?
I think I just gave you about an hour's worth of comments.
It was in here.
The CIP, just so you know, is this.
That's right.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, we did not approve that. So I will need a motion from the board to approve the CIP.
Make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and a second. Any comments or, okay, do I have,
I got a question, I guess
Okay.
it's just a comment. And just to clarify, Terry, when we're approving that CIP, we're including this drawing.
Yeah, it's all, it's basically all a package.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that everybody gets that.
If you want to add clarity, you could say approve the CIP and the AOP updates.
That's, if we could.
That'd be more precise.
That we're all aware of.
all right, so the motion is to approve the CIP and the ALP updates. Okay? All right, any more comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it is approved, okay? Now, we're back on the original agenda, and we need item number 9. Entertain a motion to approve Holt work authorization for the design of the South T hangar grading and draining funded by the $105,000 from the sale of the school property. Terry?
Okay, this one's gonna take just a little bit of explanation, because you might say, I thought we already had a grant to design the T-hanger area over here, and that is true, but that's everything north of the north ramp. This white apron out here is the north ramp, which is, has always been there, almost since the airport opened. And we have a grant that is funding the design of where the big pile of dirt is. The problem with the big pile of dirt is that it's gonna take a lot of money to move that much dirt, and we have a much more critical need for T-hangers than what that will support. And so as we've entered into the design of that, as we've begun the design work and the details that go into all of that, we struck upon the idea of we're already approved for hangars in this area, and now that we've got this project moving, and we know that we can put our corporate hangars over here, you know, the hangars the size of what the museum is going to be building, it makes more sense to dedicate this entire space to T-hangers. So we're now talking about the south and the north T-hanger complex. The south T-hanger complex is the area that already exists, the pad ready location there that already exists, and the north T-hanger area is the big dirt pile above that. So the work authorization that you have in front of you is the additional engineering work required to prepare for the taxi lanes, the underground civil engineering work, the surveying, everything that is required to prepare us to build 2 more taxiways and 4 hangar buildings there, 2 of which we would own and 2 of which, as we've talked about in the past, would probably be investor built. These are the box hangars that go on the end rows. But the 2 T-hangars in the middle, we intend to build and manage as the airport for the reasons that we've discussed in the past. And so I asked Holt to prepare an estimate, a work authorization, for what it would cost to do that work. And then the next step is I had to go to GDOT, per the letter that you've seen in the discussion of grants, to release the $105,000 to pay for it. Because I've got to spend that money in the next 3 years, and it has to be spent on an approved project on the AOP. And in my opinion, this is our highest priority project that we've got, because we have such a need, as every airport in the metropolitan Atlanta area does, for T-hangers. We'll fill them up the minute they open. And so Holt has done that. And I intentionally did not put a price on here because we need to discuss the discrepancy between their estimate and the money that we've got available to us. So we have $105,000 in the bank right now that can be applied to this project. I have gone through the process of getting GDOT approval to release that money for this project. So they've done that. I've also gotten their approval on the work authorization. Remember that GDOT, as part of the grant process, has to approve all of our construction grants and all of our work authorizations that are funded by any of those grants. And remember, I said that $105,000 is basically treated as a grant, so this was no exception. And so I passed this through our project manager at GDOT, and GDOT has approved it. So we've got the money, we've got the approvals that are necessary, and now we can choose to go do the work. The disconnect is that Holt's engineering estimate, if you look on page 3, is $121,700. The funding that we've got available is $105,000. So there's boy, you can't do public math. It's some number, 21,700, did I do that right? That we're short between what Holt is estimating they need and what we actually have in the bank to spend. I've sat down and looked at the finances, and I believe we can afford this $21,700 easily. We're coming up on the end of the year here, and we've got, what you told me this morning, about 44. We've got $44,000 in the bank right now, and we sell fuel every day, so that number will climb a little bit between now and the end of the year. So we can take this project on and fully fund it, and I think never miss a beat. Or you can choose to fund it at the $105,000 level, and we can partially fund it now and have to come back later. But in my opinion, that runs the risk of slowing down the project. And the reason I don't want to do that is because I've got my eye on the construction money for this as year-end money. GDOT has basically said they're gonna be looking for projects in this price range from airports that have shovel-ready projects in about the March, April timeframe. So if we are ready to go to bid in let's say March or early April, we've got a very high probability of getting the funding, the grant funding, to go do this in this fiscal year, which would short circuit by at least a year the process of getting 2 hangars built here that is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, my highest priority right now as the airport director, is getting a place to bring in new tenants so that we can continue to grow the airport. So what I would encourage you to do is to amend this motion to fully fund, and look on page, well, you don't have it in front of you probably, but it's on page 2. It's $126,700, okay? And so I would ask you to fully fund that.
Page 2 of what?
Of this that I sent you electronically. This is the whole work authorization.
Okay. We're looking at the papers on our table.
If you don't have it, I didn't put it in the package because it's 42 pages long and I was tired of printing.
Gotcha. Now I understand why we can't find it, James.
That's right. You don't have
We're looking at it.
Right, you don't have the work authorization in front of you, but you have it electronically sent to you, I think Friday or Monday.
Yeah, now I know where to look.
Okay. And so again, this work authorization has been vetted by me, it's been vetted by GDOT, it's been approved by the FAA in terms of all of the process we just talked about. The $105,000 plus whatever interest it has accrued since 2020, which again is just think of it as $105,000. It's almost no interest. And so my ask is that you fully fund this. You have a choice of partially funding it with the available funds that we have today. But I don't think we're jeopardizing any of our programs, projects, mission, maintenance of the airport if we go ahead and fully fund this.
Okay, so the motion then is to approve this at the $126,700, which is a combination of $105 Fed dollars and then our dollars.
Right.
Instead of just the Fed, it's to cover the whole cost of it.
Correct.
Or delay the part that would be local.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any comments?
I got one more question, Terry, and I apologize. You mentioned during your discussion just then, 2 sets of T hangers.
Yes.
The most recent drawing I've seen has a series of 5 T hangers in it.
Correct.
Can you explain
Yes, this is the south 2.
the south?
So there will be 2
I got what you're saying now.
here, and then 3 more up on the hill, but we got a big pile of dirt to move. That's gonna be the next year project. And I also, let me clarify one other thing. In my opinion, we do not need to carry this to the Board of Commissioners because I'm not asking them to fund the 21.7. I believe we've got that in our PCAA budget, and we've already got the $105,000 in our name. So I think this is a project that we can do as the PCAA, and we can just notify the Board of Commissioners that we're doing it rather than asking for their approval. Dave, would you want to think about that and comment on whether you think you need a vote from your board as well?
I think we should have the co-sponsor vote, but I think they'll be excited to know that you got the extra 21,000 without pulling more taxpayers.
Okay. Okay. But basically as a courtesy vote?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll be happy to present it at your next board meeting if you,
It'll be a 5-0 or
Can I
a
have your 5 minutes?
Terry, knowing that on the south, the current taxiway for the south is what's out here for 2 of the hangars on one side. Does this also include within the plans for the taxiway that I'll call on the eastern side of South 1, or the southeast one, and the western taxiway that would be on the southwest building?
that is exactly what this is to design.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not to build the hangars.
Right.
This is to design and prepare for the construction of the utility movement, the new taxiways that are needed and so forth, the infrastructure upon which we would then build the hangars as a later project.
So it gives us the taxiway on either side of the.
Correct. And if you look, get your magnifying glass out.
I got my drawing.
There you go. Blow that up and you can see those two taxiways.
Okay. And it does not include any of the taxiways that are part of the north project, though.
Correct. Well, so in order to build the north, you have to have these south taxiways too. So this is a necessary first step to get to the north. So this would cover the first half of that as well. So when we get ready to clear the land on the north, we'll just start at what is currently our driveway. And our driveway, remember, moves to Airport Parkway Extension, which is behind the dirt pile, okay, and a part of the dirt pile. And that driveway that you currently come into this building basically becomes the cut-through taxiway for that whole complex of T-hangars.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, then what we have on the table then is entertain a motion to approve work authorization for the design of the South T hangar grading and drainage funded by the $126,700 from the sale of the school property and
$21,700
of airport dollars.
airport funds. Yes.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, it is approved. Okay, the next item is, I need a motion, entertain a motion to go into executive session for the discussion of real estate and litigation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will be in executive session. Okay, let me bring us back into a regular session and report that there was no business, no action taken in the executive session. And I'll open the floor up. Any comments? Hearing none, any questions? Okay, we've covered everything except legal. But first I would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, a happy holiday season. Y'all be traveling, be safe, and spend time with your families. That's what counts. And with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Adjourned.